Special Advisor, Espen Barth Eide. Dear Ambassador of Finland, former Commissioner of Cyprus to the EU, Andrie Vasiliou, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Andrie Penta, and I will be facilitating today's event. We have gathered here today following an initiative of Globalshapers Nicosia to bring together youth from across the island, aiming at exchanging ideas on entrepreneurship, education, arts, and culture. The Globalshapers Nicosia Hub undertakes activities to empower young people, promote active citizenship, as well as entrepreneurship. Members of Globalshapers come from various backgrounds and walks of life, and they actively participate in the planning and implementation of projects to improve the state of our community. Today's event will include speakers from the business, education, government, and cultural sectors. We will begin by inviting to the stage Mr. Andreas Hadjisofokleous, curator and founding member of Globalshapers in Nicosia, for his welcome speech. Mr. Hadjisofokleous is passionate about building startups. He is currently the co-founder of Food Club, an online ordering platform of food. Moreover, Andreas acts as the vice president of the Nicosia Toastmasters Club.
Thank you, Andrie. Dear fellow humans, welcome to the conference Young People Shape Cyprus. We would like to welcome Mr. Espen Barth Eide, who kindly accepted our invitation to be the keynote speaker today. Also, we would like to welcome our panel speakers who accepted our invitation to share their views about the future of entrepreneurship, education, arts and culture in a unified Cyprus. Warm welcome as well to the Ambassador of Finland and to the former European Commissioner for Education, Culture, Multilingualism and Youth, Ms. Androula Vasiliou. Moreover, we would like to welcome our special guests, all of you, and especially the younger generation, who with your presence today at this event, you prove that you do care about the future of our country. Finally, I would like to thank all the supporters and contributors of this event, and especially our amazing shapers who helped in successfully planning and organizing this event under strict deadlines. With your permission, I would like to say a few words about our community. Globalshapers Nicosia Hub is part of the Globalshapers community, a worldwide network of more than 450 hubs around the world, which are led by young people who are exceptional in their drive to make and contribute to their community. Globalshapers community with headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, is an initiative of the World Economic Forum. The Globalshapers community Nicosia is the first hub in Cyprus. We undertake activities to empower young people, promote active citizenship and entrepreneurship. As part of our activities is today's conference, Young People Shape Cyprus, which aims to include the voice of young people in the agenda of the negotiations between the leaders of both communities. I remember when we applied with Cezich Thompson to open the first Globalshapers Hub in Cyprus, we knew that it would be a challenging task. We had to decide upon a common place for our Shapers meetings, and we had to decide who would be the founding curator and the number of Shapers from both communities who would be part of this hub. However, as both of us are entrepreneurs at heart, our desire to create something meaningful in order to improve our community was much greater than any cultural or political stereotype. We managed to set up the hub within a few months, proving that Greek and Turkish Cypriots can find ways to live, work, and collaborate together as all human beings, as strange as this may sound to some people. We do believe that our example can be applied to all fields. We need leaders with an entrepreneurial spirit and urge to create a sustainable, peaceful future. Globalshapers Nicosia is a non-partisan community. Despite the fact that we have shapers from different backgrounds, we work together with the main goal to improve the state of our community. We represent a new generation of people who avoid labeling themselves. We simply prefer the term humans. With this event today, we aim to urge the leaders of both communities to include the voice of young people in the agenda of the negotiations. By joining our voice today, together, we can contribute in making our community a better place to live. We hope you enjoy our conference. Thank you.
Andreas, thank you. I consider it a great honor to welcome UN's Special Advisor on Cyprus, Mr. Espen Barth Eide, onto the stage. In 2014, Mr. Eide was appointed United Nations Special Advisor on Cyprus. Espen Barth Eide is the Managing Director of the World Economic Forum. He served as Norway's Minister of Defense and then as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Since December 2013, Mr. Eide has served as a member of the board of the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, where he is currently chairman of the Operations Committee. Mr. Eide.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and thanks, Andreas. Thanks to the Nicosia Shapers. I'm really very proud to be here, and I'm very happy for this invitation, and I'm happy to see that your initiative has reached out to many people, many young people, and some people who used to be young but who are still young at heart, like myself. are here today, and that's really, really good. And I will start by assuring you that what I myself and my team will learn today, because we're not just speaking and leaving, we're going to sit here and listen to you, are things that we will bring to the leaders' attention and bring to the negotiations, because I firmly believe that it's important that the younger people of Cyprus takes their part in shaping the future of Cyprus, if for no other reason that you will be part of the future much longer than those who have lived longer than you have. A few statistics just to illustrate that point. I checked a little bit, and I found out that the median age in Cyprus is 35.7 years. Median means if you stable everyone from the youngest to the oldest in a row and look who's in the middle, this person is 35.7 years old. Another statistic is, and there's no offense to anybody, but 90% of the population is younger than the leaders. I can assure you that the leaders with whom I work, and by the way, the vast majority of the population is also younger than me. So, and there is nothing wrong with the youthfulness of the people who are negotiating a deal. But it is very important that the primary purpose of having a settlement is not in itself to overcome the past, but to develop the future and to lay the foundations for a shared future. Because as I have said in many occasions previously as well, the primary problem of anybody in Cyprus is not other people in Cyprus, but it is the fact that Cyprus is divided. That's your problem. The division is the problem. It's not us versus them, the other side. It's the fact that it's divided. That has a lot of negative consequences for everyday life, for economic opportunities, for security, and everything that matters in life. That's a shared problem. And you can overcome that shared problem by a shared solution. There is no individual solution to a shared problem. It's only shared solutions to a shared problem, and through a shared solution you can embark on a shared future. It's kind of obvious, but I think it's good sometimes to say this, because it's actually quite important to think about it in this way. If you want a modern, pluralistic, prosperous country, you need to put your sights on the future. The past cannot be changed. What you can change is the interpretation of the past and the way you use the past as an argument. That is actually being changed all the time. History is not a set thing. History is interpretation. Any version of history is highlighting certain aspects and a certain interpretation over all the alternative ways of understanding history. Unfortunately, in conflict situations, and this is a conflict even if it's peaceful, it's a conflict in the sense the old conflict is not settled, despite of the very positive fact that people are not shooting at each other. It's still a conflict in a mental sense, and conflicts tends to privilege a type of reading of history that emphasizes all the good that we did and all the bad that they did. It's not unique to Cyprus. It's not only you. It's perfectly normal, but it's also perfectly bad, because it's normally a very skewed interpretation of the past. There's very few places that actually is like that, you know, one side did everything right and another side did everything wrong. It normally is not the way it goes, and of course it's not the truth even here. So I'm very, very encouraged by the fact that at leaders level there has now been an initiative to start looking into education. And this is an idea that came from the two communities, from the two leaders. I know that a lot of people, including in the educational services, have been active in raising this, and it was raised by the leaders, not by me, not by the UN, not by foreigners, but by Cypriots, Cypriot leaders who say we simply have to start tackling the fact that we have been teaching a version of history that A, is not precisely correct, and B, is not helpful to promote a shared understanding of the future. That's good. That's something that you as young people who may still be in education or be engaged in the educational profession or have a recent experience of education will need to support, because I think the leaders need support, because there's no secret that not everybody agrees with this. And wait and see. Not everybody will agree with that because it's actually very, very easy. It's such an easy story to tell. Here we are, we're pure. Here they are, they're bad, or they were bad, or they are reminiscence of something very evil. It's very easy, but it's also very wrong. And I think to tackle this is important. We had a sort of ghost of the past popping up again a couple of weeks ago, Monday the 16th, of all times, 3 days after the Paris terrorist attacks, where somebody thought it was opportune to start throwing stones and so on at people from the other community. This time it was Greek Cypriot youth against the Turkish Cypriot members of the Turkish Cypriot community. That really doesn't matter. The point is that these are the relics, these are the ghosts of the past. That was bad, but I was very encouraged by seeing the reaction. I saw the reaction by the leaders, not only by Mr. Anastasiadis, Mr. Akinci, but by leaders across the political spectrum condemning this. But I was even more encouraged when I saw the reaction in social media, where a lot of people took to modern channels of communication to say that this is not on our behalf, not in my name, this is not the Cyprus we want. So maybe that was a wake-up call, a reminder that the stability that people in this island on both sides have been used to, a non-solution, but a stable non-solution, may not necessarily remain stable and peaceful forever if we don't work for a solution. However, the opportunity to find a solution, in my view, is better than in decades. And I dare to say decades in plural. I think it's better, I'm not daring to say better than ever, but better than in decades. The stars are actually well aligned. And it's not only me saying that, it's actually also the leaders. You will have seen from the statement that came out of our last meeting on Wednesday, which was the last of the November session of meetings, that the two leaders for the first time said that they felt more hopeful and more confident that the solution can be found in the near future. I know that the near future is not a very precise term, but it's still a commitment, and the leaders, I can share with you that the leaders looked at each other and said, we're committing ourselves, right? And the leaders said, yes, well, let's do that. This is because we have made great strides to overcome some of the most difficult issues. That are sine qua non, means that without those there won't be a deal. Because on the table that I'm sharing, there are hundreds of topics, in principle thousands if you subdivide them. But of course there are not 1,000 issues that matter equally much. There are few issues that really matter, and the rest is technicalities and detail. So I have the sense, shared with Mr. Akinci, Mr. Anastasiadis, that we're really making progress on some of those. Why don't they tell you more? I think everybody in the media, and I have my deepest sympathy, I know exactly how it is to try to be analyzing this from the outside, would of course like to hear, we found this solution on, maybe on property, on territory, whatever, and start playing out in detail. But there is good reason. Again, not my reason, it's the leaders who decide. It's a leader-led process. I'm helping them. My team and I, we're facilitating this, but it's driven by them. They believe that it's much better to explain a final solution as a package rather than as piecemeal. And I simply must share with you, it's up to you, you make up your own opinion. I think they're right. I think that's the right thing to do. I think it's unfortunate, but I think the way the political landscape, political culture works, there will be a lot of energy spent in trying to analyze, understand, and criticize and condemn and ask for clarification on single issues which may look strange on their own to a community, but makes perfect sense if you see the package that they belong to. But what I can tell you is that what we are striving to achieve is a modern European solution. A country that is a federation, bizonal, bicommunal federation, fully compatible with modern thinking about government, about human rights, about European principles, and free movement. One country, one sovereign to the world, a citizenship of the future united Cyprus, which will have a name. That's also part of the negotiations, but whatever the phenomenon, that will the united country, in which you are principally a citizen of that country, and within that you are also part of a constituent state, which is either the Turkish Cypriot or the Greek Cypriot constituent state. Your Bill of Rights, your human rights, are, however, embodied at the federal level, like in all the federations. And the world is full of federations. Many of them work really well. And a very typical phenomenon, why does people create federations rather than unitary states? Well, people invent federations because it's a very good way of organizing life when you have different communities of different size that want to preserve some cultural integrity, that want to preserve identity in unity. It's happened in I'm Norwegian, but I live in Switzerland. Switzerland is a federation. It's a little bit conservative, so it still calls itself a confederation, because it used to be a confederation from 1291 to 1848. So they think it's a little early to change the name. But in reality, for the last 150 years, it's been a federation. And just to share, so I live in Geneva, that's the Francophone part. It's absolutely French. It's completely French. I also speak German. It doesn't help me for a millisecond in Geneva, because I better speak English or French. I'm French, of course. And if I can't speak French, I will speak English, because the majority language, German, is not the language of government and so on. It works perfectly well. And people move around, but they still preserve this identity. America is a federation, Germany is a federation, Austria is a federation, and so on. Many federal states work really well. But that's also why, and this is well known because it's been on the table for all these different attempts, you will have the typical features of federation. You will have Senate with equal representation, you will have a lower house where size matters, and so on. Typical, not unique to Cyprus, it's normal. That's the way people do it when you have different communities of different size. One experience which has been rewarding and fascinating in the process of the talks is to see how simply the fact that the leaders, and even more so their excellent negotiators, hard-working people, Andreas Mavroyiannis, Özlem Nami, and their teams, are working on a practically daily basis, sometimes over weekend at night, to get to know, not only to get to know each other, because they know each other really well now. I think probably think a reason to find a solution is that they can start seeing some other people, but also to really deeply understand the nature of the position. So it's not only about agreeing, because disagreement is not bad. I mean, disagreement is not a bad thing. I mean, I disagree with people I like all the time, and sometimes I even disagree with my wife. She normally gets her way, of course, but I'm fine. So disagreement is not bad. What is bad, if you think is the other opinion is an expression of evil. It's impossible to have that view. How can you have that view? It makes no sense. And then you think about it, actually it makes sense. Maybe, reality, you know what? If I were you, I might have had the same opinion. So if I, for instance, let's say a Greek Cypriot could think that if the population ratio was the other way around, a sort of vast majority of Greek Cypriots and a smaller group of Turkish Cypriots, well, of course, maybe the Greek Cypriot will be demanding certain protection of the smaller community as well. Not because of anything that had to do with either, the fall of Constantinople, but maybe simply because it's a minority, it's a smaller group. Logical, modern reasons that can be tackled. And when you change difference into understandable, decipherable difference, it's also much easier to move from difference to agreement and compromise. I come from a country, Norway, where in our Nordic culture we think compromise is a good thing. So the compromise is seen as positive because you bridge gaps. I think, if I may say so, there are different interpretations. Sometimes compromise may be misinterpreted as weakness. You're not standing up for your right. You're not going for 100%. 70% is not good enough. I want 100. But the problem is that approach will not take you to a solution, because there is no the perfect solution. Not mine, but if I am one side, imagine I want either side. If I say I want all my demands met and none of his, I know exactly what's happened. There is no solution, of course. It's quite logical. Of course it will not happen. And there is no alternative. At least there is no peaceful alternative to a negotiated solution. And I think the alternatives are to that would be such that you don't even want to think about it. So some kind of compromise is necessary. I'm very happy to see the topics. I mentioned education briefly. I'm sure you'll talk more about that. Entrepreneurship, opportunity, economy. Something that I care a lot about. As you know, I'm happily carrying 2 hats. I didn't bring them today, but here as the UN Special Advisor to the UN, but also my World Economic Forum, which is also why I'm particularly proud to be with the Shapers, because the Shapers, they're independent, but they have transpired out of the World Economic Forum ecosystem. So it's great to see also with that hat on your success in setting up the Nicosia Shapers Hub and bringing this conference together. But also logically, I care about the economy. And young people need to think about the economy. I think now the youth unemployment in the southern part of the island is 33%. In the northern part, it's about 20%. Both are very high numbers. I am absolutely convinced that some of that unemployment is a function of the division, because division is costly. It means that this a tiny, beautiful but small island has 2 economies rather than 1. Sort of, it's basic an economy 101 is that 1 economy in 1 island is more smarter than 2 economies. It's quite obvious, right? The division has opportunity cost. There's a lot of things. And the chambers of commerce, the Turkish Cypriot and the Greek Cypriot chambers of commerce, went to great strides in explaining the opportunity cost. The simple cost of it's not only, first it's what you can't do because you're divided. I mean, for instance, the large part of the island cannot export to the biggest market in the neighborhood, Turkey, because of mutual non-recognition. The other part of the island can only export to Turkey. And not to the rest of the world, which is not good for their economy either. And then you have the Greenland regulation trying to soften this a little bit, but this, of course, holds back an economy that otherwise would be there. The large shipping sector, which is big in Cyprus, cannot go to Turkish ports, which means there's an obvious trade route that could be dominated by Cypriot ships. That can't happen because of the geopolitical division. It will be overcome on day 1 with a settlement right away. So the immediate effect on the economy in that sector. As you are developing more over time, it probably takes more time than was originally thought, but eventually I'm quite convinced this country will benefit from its hydrocarbons future. It's much easier to deal with those issues in the context of a settlement and to make logical, modern commercial decisions, both of investment policies, but also export policies and so on. So there are so many reasons for this. I am also quite sure, and this is a qualified sense, based on conversation with many of the members of the World Economic Forum, that those who know it, it's a private organization and the membership are the largest corporations in the world. A lot of them are looking at what we're doing here with great interest, because they think that Cyprus can be the perfect hub for operations in the Middle East-Europe bridge. It's perfectly located, and a number of companies are now looking for an alternative place to where they have been, because maybe the place they used to be, maybe in parts of the Middle East which are now breaking down, is becoming too dangerous. So they would like to be close but not in that country, and Cyprus would offer itself as a perfect place. But of course, when you come to the board, the CEO comes to the board and say, let's go to Cyprus. The board will say, isn't Cyprus divided? Isn't there something with Turkey and with isn't there something there? No, we don't go to Cyprus now. So these decisions are not happening thanks to the division. These things matter. What I'm talking about now is jobs. I'm talking about opportunity, future, career development. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not the interest of the big rich guys. It's the activity they would create if you took away the obstacle that lies in a solution. This is an important part of shaping the future. And this has nothing to do, nothing whatsoever, about whether you're Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot. It's a shared opportunity. And these things has to be on the table, which is why I've been pushing hard to get more emphasis in the talks on these issues, and what I think your focus on entrepreneurship matters. Because this, again, when a new federal structure is developed, I think it's important But the decision, of course, is up to the Cypriots. And by the way, let me just insert here that the actual decision is not taken by the leaders, not by me, but by everyone in Cyprus. So every citizen of Cyprus has one vote. Nobody has 2 votes, nobody has 0 votes, everybody has 1 each, and you make the decision at the end of the day. So it's your decision whether you unify. But one thing I would look for is not only if we got the right balance in the committees between sort of two communities. It's also, will that new government be effective in promoting growth? Will it be able to make speedy, modern, rational decisions? Will it provide for the economic opportunity? Because the possibility is clearly there. That's a given. But possibilities do not just happen. You have to grasp them, take them, and do something with it. And these things, I will say, I'm not talking necessarily about the negotiations as such, but the broader debate about Cyprus in Cyprus is so much focused on the traditional issues. Now, good news is that sometimes people are now looking for new answers to the old questions. But I think what you can, as shapers, as young people, can bring in as some new questions and then new answers to new questions, which is even better than new answers to old questions. Because the questions where, the Cyprus problem, in a sense, over all these years, all these decades, is a layer of position that was taken in a certain context. And sometimes the position is still there even if the context is gone. And the context now is the 21st century. Everyone here will live their life in the 21st century. And the 21st century is fundamentally different from the 20th century. And people, countries, they do not get to create new constitutions, new political order every year. It's quite unique. So on the day you have a new constitution, it will be the most modern constitution in the world in a chronological sense, obviously, because it doesn't happen very often. But the ambition should be that it's also the most modern constitution, not in a chronological sense, newest, but actually that it looks like it was made in the 21st century, in 2016, for instance. That it should transpire. Yes, it has to answer some old questions. There are real issues that must be tackled. Property, let me take property. Of course, we need an answer to the property issues. People lost, and people want to know what happened to their loss. Will they be compensated? Will they get back? Can they go home? The answer is already yes, obviously. Go home in the meaning go to where they came from. But what about the property? Well, that's an important issue, and we're making progress. And very important, don't get me wrong, but it is still about settling the past. It's not in a negative sense, but it's still about settling the past. This is not creating the future. It's overcoming certain things that are outstanding issues from the whole period from 63 to 74 and so on. But it's not really about the future. The future is about other things, and those things have to be factored in to this overall discussion. You're also talking about arts and culture, and I think incredibly important because pluralistic societies will have fantastic opportunities for cultural expression for yourself, for your own consumption, but also to the world. I simply happen to think that living in diverse countries is more interesting than very monothematic countries because it's very much more of the same. And it's actually linked to the reading of history. Culture is an expression of, culture can be static preservation. It can also be inspired imagining of where we're heading. And I was very happy to see that arts and culture is a topic here because I do think that a vision for the arts or culture of a united Cyprus is a vision that not only Cypriots but the rest of us should also follow with interest, because maybe the very process of coming together, rediscovering each other, rediscovering the richness, the connection, the similarities, and the creative difference is something that would be very, very exciting, and I think it would be a rich cultural future. But think about it, grasp it, and use it for good purpose. The last thing I wanted to say is, and I touched upon it, but let me underline one thing. Conflict structures people's minds, as I mentioned. Conflict tends to structure people's minds, and conflict has all over, and I've seen many much worse than this one, by the way, much more fresh blood, fresh dying, and so on. But conflict has has an effect on people's mind because it privileges a certain dichotomy. So the dichotomy that matters becomes us versus them. And that's true for the people who are conflicted, but it's even in a sense it's forced upon the people who are trying to solve things. That you're driven to think about things as what about Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. That's one of a myriad of things that distinguishes people. We have a lot of we have women and men, for instance. We have young and old. We have urban and rural, rich and poor, left and right. There's so many things that creates diversity and difference, but the conflict will say that one is more important than the others. And one consequence of that, typically, is that it privileges men and elderly people. Because it's actually not a coincidence that, let me say, I'll speak generically, a country in conflict will typically have more male leaders and more elderly leaders than a non-conflictual society, because it's easier to focus all these other issues when conflict has been overcome. And actually that's an argument for people, even for people who may not think so much about the side probe as such, but just to understand that the continuation of this creates a whole cottage industry, in a sense, of non-solution, non-recognition. It's a lot of talent that is spent on not solving the problem. And imagine that you release all that talent to do something more useful than not solving a problem. There's vast opportunities for these people if they could sort of redirect their energies into something even more creative and even more productive than this. But this is an argument for why we should be careful about conflicts. I should say, this is an optimistic group, an optimistic tone, and there's great opportunity, but this opportunity must be grasped. Not only is it the best one in a long time, but you may have to wait very long to see it occur again, if it's not grasped this time. There are very dark clouds over the neighborhood. The international scene has just been getting worse as the side probe has been getting better. It's quite paradoxical, and we actually talk about it at the table. We have had this for half a year now. It's not that every day has been rosy and every single day has brought a marvelous breakthrough, not at all. But the general trajectory has been moving forward in a structured, steady manner. While we look out and there's terrorism, there's IS, there's a conflict between Russia and Turkey, a political conflict, there's deep challenges to the global economy, massive disruption in many industries. All these things are happening around us as we deal with this. And I always end up with the same conclusion. Grasp this opportunity, do it now, get it right, get this new state in place. Get the federal United Cyprus on its feet, because you will be much better prepared, all of you, whether you want to go into politics or stay as long away from politics as you can, which I also would understand. But for whatever you do, it will be much easier to do it if you get over the problem. And that's why we need the voice of the young, and that's why it's you, in the end of the day, who have to shape Cyprus. Thank you for the attention.
Mr. Eide, that was a really inspiring speech. Thank you. We will now take any questions from the audience addressing Mr. Eide. Some questions have also been received in the past few days through social media. However, Mr. Eide will be with us for a few hours still. Therefore, you will have a chance to find him during breaks and ask any personal questions you may have as well. So, any questions from the audience, please?
Thank you very much for a fantastic talk. all I want to say, I don't want to ask a question, I just feel that all the things you have said are embedded and taken to heart. I liked in the comments of a top American politician who said our strength is in our diversity, not our weakness. And I have no questions because I agree with everything you say. So that's it.
But you are allowed to disagree, by the way.
Mr. Ede, thank you for your speech. I would like to ask, what has changed this time? Why we should believe that this time we are really close to a solution, to a fair solution?
Maybe I should answer from there because you can see.
Yes,
yeah,
sure.
So as you can imagine, I've been thinking about that too. But I think it's in a combination of. All right. I think it is reason number one is that is what's I and many others have said. The stars are well aligned. That there's an opportunity out there in a sense, and this is it's a permissible international environment. Key regional actors would like to see a solution, and there is a mood in the island that a solution would actually be quite welcome. But the other reason, of course, is that you are now led by Mr. Ansasels and Mr. Akinci, who are, declared supporters of a solution with significant political support on each of their sides. Not perfect, not 100%, nothing is a given, but two strong leaders who are demonstrated trust and will and leadership, and actually who have found each other. They are the same age, as I mentioned. They are also both Limassolians. They have an established respect for each other from the past, and I think that this particular leadership connection is both good in itself, because it means that the very top of the two systems actually wants this to happen, and this is something I feel very strongly, and I see them more than all. I'm probably the person who see them most frequently together, of everyone. And I can say that I feel that all the time, whether things are moving forward or whether we're stuck in a particular issue, the will is there, and the trust in that this is that one would say this is the partner with which we can do this. And I do not think we can expect to get a better one if we wait. That's a part of the situation. And if you compare to 2004, the landscape was quite different, without spelling out on that, but I think that's reasonably well known. So if you compare, we also know, another thing we do know is that these two leaders, if they're successful now to achieve settlement, and if they're also after that successful in convincing the two communities to vote yes, they have a lasting mandate. I mean, they actually have the authority of office for the time needed to actually get this into place. There's not a presidential election coming up that could disrupt this by a major political change at the presidential level or the leadership level in the time we're speaking about, which I think is also an important factor. And there is massive international support. Now, I always want to say it's a Cypriot solution. It has to be found by Cypriots. Nobody's telling you to do this because the world wants it. It has to be owned by Cyprus. But it helps that you have a United Security Council that want to work on this, and you actually have the guarantor powers actually looking for ways to be constructive, as we also just heard from one of them the other day. Andrula. I'm not the chair, by the way.
Yes. I have a question and a comment. My question is, in your opinion, will the situation in Turkey and the conflict that exists in the area will affect at some stage the negotiations? Because we'll reach a point where Turkey's participation will be very important. My comment is about the secrecy of the negotiations. I agree perfectly with you that they should keep it as quiet as possible until they reach a stage where they can announce. But I believe that there should be meetings where people who were knowledgeable should explain to the people the basic elements of the solution.
Yes.
Like, for example, there is a lot of confusion among the public. What is a federation? So the basic elements of the solution, which we know which will be, should be explained from now. We shouldn't wait until the final agreement is reached and then rush into explaining what is here, what's this and what's the other. So I want your comment.
Yes. I agree. I agree. And I think people, I mean, everyone here who cares about this, people in the media, could perfectly well start doing that now. You don't have to wait because you know the answer to the paradox. People, yes, it's the secrecy of the exact details, but you know most of the answers a long time ago. The joint declaration of 11th of February 2004 basically looks like the Wikipedia article about the new federal state. It's already written. I mean, it is federal, for instance. You know, it's perfectly possible to study federations now. There's minor details being discussed, but not whether it's a federal structure. What's the relationship between Senate and lower house in the federation? It's not rocket science. You look at any federation and you find it. Imagining the benefits of having a normalized relationship to all neighbors can be done now. You don't have that, but you can imagine it now because you know for an absolute fact, 100% certainty, that with the settlement, there will be a normalization with all neighbors. And what would that mean for geopolitics and economy and so on? You don't need to wait because you know exactly that this will happen if the settlement is there. So I think Andrea's question is very good and very important, that don't sit there waiting passively and let's see the final details. I mean, not everybody in the world is extremely interested in the exact composition of a special committee in the administrative system. It's not really the end of your life, in a sense. I mean, these are important details somebody has to decide, but it's not really what matters for your life. So a lot of these broad issues are well known a long time ago. We just have to get there. It's an interesting. You know, as a mediator or facilitator of this, if you compare Cyprus to other conflicts, of course, one obvious difference is that it's peaceful. It's been, I mean, there was a lot of conflict, but it's a long time ago. But another, maybe even more striking feature, it's very structured. There are two sides. The two sides know that they have to negotiate, then they want the UN to help them negotiate. They agree on the chapters of the negotiations, it's very neat and orderly. They agree on the sub-chapters and the topics, and we move forward on this. This is, in one hand, a great advantage, because this normally does not happen. Sometimes it's also a little bit challenging, because there, as I said, positions may be held today, or I say until recently, that were a position that was an answer to a question that was relevant maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, and maybe the question is gone, but the position is still there. So one of our jobs is to say that, you know, what exactly are you solving with that position? And that's what we're doing right now. So if you see that there's an upside and a downside to that. But to your question, yes, I do think people should start engaging in discussing and imagining what it will be. And actually start think federally. You know, just assume there will be a federal Cyprus. It will be there quite soon. You know, and what will my life be in that federal Cyprus? And for people who think this is scary, is that much of your life will not change. You know, if you will probably live exactly where you live and do exactly what you do in the near future. What enhances is the opportunity for what you can do. It's not that you're forced to do something different, but you can do something different, and that's a very important thing. So it's nothing to fear, it's something to strive towards. Okay, Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah. I can group questions if you want, because there are many people.
Sure, okay. May I kindly ask anyone who is posing a question to first introduce themselves? Thank you. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is...
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Should we take up a question? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Should we take a couple of questions?
Yes, we did take one from here already, from the front. So, number 2.
Hello, my name is Glavkos Mitsidis. I have a question regarding how do we reconcile the fact that we're planning a solution in the near future, so the time is near to arrive at this solution, but we have to overcome years and years of a certain mentality. To overcome that mentality, time needs to pass so that the new culture, new mentality is cultivated to accept this new solution. So how do we reconcile that the solution is coming because the stars have aligned with a past that is holding both communities back and the need to basically move on and create a new environment, a new culture, and a new atmosphere towards that solution?
As we are taking group questions, can we take number 2 as well?
Yeah.
Number 3.
Thanks indeed for your inspiring talk. My name is Erhan. I'm going to be delivering the talk about the arts and culture, one of the members. I was wondering, why not just the technical committees are being used in a constructive way? Because there are already, there is a cultural committee, and then one of the members are over here as well. Because the situation seems like we are leaders focused negotiations nowadays. However, there are teams of the leaders, and then we don't get to see these people, or we don't hear what they say, what they think, and it's just there's a lot of speculation around it. And I think there is enough infrastructure and enough ideas just to use this opportunity already to create some measures. You already mentioned, you have really used interesting 2 notions, creativity and difference. And I believe that this creative difference could be really used in a constructive way to already start implement things. I was wondering what sort of creative differences the leaders, if you have ever got the chance to talk about, did they come up with something about arts and culture?
We are only taking one more question sent through the social media at this point, and the rest of the people will have a chance to discuss with Mr. Eide during break time. Thank you. Andy?
My name is Andrie, I'm also a shaper. I have some questions from social media. Alexia Solomon, an associate legal officer in the International Court of Justice in The Hague, asked through Facebook the following: how can the views of young Cypriots be taken into account on the negotiating table?
All right. Thanks. Good questions, all of them. Well, on the last question, because it's kind of overarching the whole, well, that's why you have this conference, and I think there should be more of this. The part I can do is I can bring what I hear here, what I hear in this room, to the negotiating table. I can promise that it will give an extract of the impressions of the youth and a reminder of the engagement of the youth. Actually, some of them, and the question behind here, I might agree with you. Maybe you want to see the people actually negotiating on your behalf more, but they are out there. I mean, Mr. Anstatiadis gives speeches, Kinshuk gives speeches. I know that Mr. Mavroyanis, for instance, is a lot around to speak and take questions in different groups. So they're trying, but I also think that beyond direct interaction, it also the public to have a debate in the public sector, to write op-eds, to debate on social media, to meet each other, to come up with challenging ideas. And what I would really like to see more of is ideas where somebody say, if somebody would say from, let's say from younger generations saying, we don't really care about Greek-Cypriot, Turkish-Cypriot balance, we care about something else. How are you dealing with this? How are you dealing with the gender issue in the future Cyprus, for instance, on behalf of all of us, regardless of which side you come from, that kind of stuff. So that's part of the answer. Maybe, I'm sure people here have more answers. That would be my answer. And I'm also, after speaking, I will be listening, so I'll be wiser. when I leave here. And then to the question about mentality. Where are you now? There you are, behind. Absolutely a good question, and it concerns me a little bit, actually, that this is coming a little late. There is a recognition now that some of this has to be done through the educational system and so on. But I mean, in an optimal world, this would have started a little earlier, so that the preparations, the mental preparations that we may actually move in the direction had already happened. That said, Europe is full of examples that deep conflicts suddenly end, and then a new spirit emerges. I mean, look at the the generational conflict between Germany and France. Yes, two different countries, of course, but still, which turn into a strong partnership. These things changed. I mean, we who are Nordics here, and we have in my team we have both Finns and Norwegians. We were very skeptical to the Swedes for many generations until we started to love them, and the change happens rather quickly. The circumstance changed, and then suddenly you wonder why you were in the conflict in the first place. And we laugh about it and joke about it, and we think it's rather ridiculous to think that once upon a time we were killing each other, but we were in grand scale, massively over centuries. So we were not always peaceful. So the point is that you're right. But don't be too worried, because with the settlement comes, a new mode and a new spirit. But of course, people have to be responsible in this process. The transition phase is something I would watch particularly closely, because we do know that some people do not want reunification. I would even say it's even perfectly legitimate. I mean, I'm not here to tell people that the only legal opinion is to want reunification. If you don't want it, well, that's your problem. It's a democratic society. What is not good is if people try to undermine it through hatred and racism and so on. That's not good, because that would violate basic principles, which are also parts of free speech. That free speech is not absolutely free. I mean, there are certain things you simply can't say, like let's exterminate the other community and that kind of stuff. So I mean, some responsibility, and I maybe appeal to the media, that the media should also be aware of their own responsibility, not in censoring, which is a bad idea, but to be aware of the climate that can be contributed to also in the media setting. So an important reminder. And also the points about committee, yeah. Well, the cultural committee is, Andrula, I'm speaking about you. Sorry, I'm saying that the cultural committee, of course, is one that has shown the initiative to break out of just advising the leaders and do things. The committee's primary purpose is, of course, to facilitate the process. But there are secondary things that can be done. But I also say, what about everybody else? I mean, engage, shape, deal with the future in wherever you are and whatever you can do, because it's important now. And I would think if people really started to think as if, that could in itself create creativity which would have a positive effect when you move towards a referendum situation one day in the future.
There was a question about the situation in Turkey and if this could affect.
It's true. Well, so far we're good. Thank you for reminding me. So far, my very strong sense is that for Cyprus, the international circumstance remains positive in the sense that there is a strong desire in the European Union in assisting overcoming the division of Cyprus. It's an anomaly in a sense that the European Union is the only divided member state of the European Union, and they want to overcome that, they want to help. At the same time, Turkey is signaling very clearly and constantly that they want to play a part, and we saw Member Çavuşoğlu, the new or reappointed foreign minister, who confirmed just the other day Turkey is ready to play its part, because it's and so are the other guarantors. And there's a lot of activity now in Athens, in London, in Turkey, in Ankara, in preparing for a phase where the international dimensions have to be dealt with. I'm not here able to exactly tell you the outcome of that, but the will and the positive spirit is there, and I have many confirmations of that so far. And if you believe that that might change, well, yet another argument for not wasting time and move forward while we have this. And it is a window of opportunity is a momentum, and momentum's windows close and momentums go over, so use it now. And because these are really essential issues. I didn't say so much about security, but I can share with you that there is an understanding now that we only have a solution if both communities feel genuinely secure, and that's a shared sense of security as well, that one community does not fear the other, and vice versa, both ways. And that the security of one cannot happen to the detriment of the other, because that's what's happening now. And that historically, a community sought measures to feel secure, but those very measures created insecurity on the other side. That's a security dilemma, as it's called. So we want to overcome that by having a solution where, one side feels secure because the other side feels secure, not despite, but because of. It's not a done deal, but there's creative work going on and looking for that. I honestly dare to say, I don't think that any longer is the biggest problem of the Cyprus problem, believe it or not.
Moving on, may I invite Mr. Kemal Baikali and Mr. Vasilis Petridis onto the stage for the panel session on entrepreneurship. Mr. Baikali is the Deputy Secretary General at the Turkish Cypriot Chamber of Commerce, and he is in charge of external affairs. Mr. Petridis is the CEO of Lygos Cosmos Trading, one of the largest distributors of fast-moving consumer goods in Cyprus.
Well, thank you very much, the organizers, the shapers, and it's a pleasure to be here, and it's also an honor and a challenge to speak right after Mr. Aide, so I'll try to take that challenge. Yes, I work for the Turkish Cypriot Chamber of Commerce, and probably you heard that the chambers representing the business communities have been working very hard to give the message that the solution will be good for the both communities, very simply. I'm not here to tell you about the chamber, but in my short presentation, I'm hoping to give you some idea of what kind of a benefit that could be. Because I think we need to give a whole new perspective to Cyprus. We are convinced that everybody's talking about us, that our problems are the biggest problems on the world, and we have been following very recently that this is not really the case. And I think we need to understand that the time we are in, the location we are in on the world, and then we have to come to a reason. We have to see that Cyprus is an island in an area which is unfortunately dominated with lots of conflicts and problems. And I think we need to remember that although people are talking about that we are, the Cypriots are in their comfort zones, and they don't want to give up their comfort zones for change, but we need to be really aware and look Cyprus from a higher angle and see that those comfort zones are not granted, are not definite, unless we really do something to make sure that the future will be bringing stability on this part of the world, at least on this very particular corner. Otherwise, there is always a risk that future conflicts, or even the existing conflicts, might create even more problems to us. This is the stick part. Now, we have the carrot part as well, where that we need to understand that the current division limits our potential as human beings on this island. And I know that we are talking about the economy and the entrepreneurship here on this particular stage. And I have this sense that sometimes in Cyprus, talking about economic benefits is regarded as if you are selling out your nationalistic cause or for becoming a rich, to put it very simply. In fact, this is not the case. the case is that you need to do things to maximize your opportunities and you as human beings and your human potential. Now, I'm not going to get into too much technical, but very briefly, hopefully, to give you some inspirations, what Cyprus solution can bring. We know that there are prospects in tourism, commerce, shipping. I'm not going to count them, but just give you some examples for each and every sector. Imagine that the tourist operators are marketing both parts of the island instead of only one part. We know that there is more than 1 million tourists coming here to the north and 2 million in the south. And after the solution, it doesn't mean that 1 + 2 will be 3. Probably there will be even more synergies coming out, because now we'll be able to rebrand the island as a newly established country, and everybody will be excited to come here, again, even if they were here. Commerce, I think it's self-explanatory, and I'll mention a little bit more on that. Shipping, Mr. Aide rightly explained it. Currently, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cypriot flag-carrying vessels are the 10th biggest in the world, but unfortunately they don't have the access to the Turkish port. But this is going to change. Not only that, probably we'll be able to invest even more in that sector because of the proximity to Asia, Anatolia, Africa, go figure. And construction, we are expecting too many new holiday houses, especially, and even in a better economy, that the people coming and buying those houses, because Cyprus now is a nice place to spend their time. Higher education, after the solution of the problem, there will be a big prospect, both the higher education institutions in the north and the south, to market, again, Cyprus as a whole, as a destination for higher education. Now, the Greek Cypriots particularly will benefit from accessing to the Turkish ports. Accessing to the Turkish market as well. We are talking about 80 million of people with a purchasing power, despite their political problems, a growing economy. So imagine that you will be accessing to those markets. And imagine that you are accessing to those markets with the Turkish-speaking Turkish Cypriot compatriots. And imagine all the partnerships that you can build to access. And accessing Turkey doesn't mean Turkey only. It means Caucasia, the Middle East, the Islamic countries, and the Turkish Cypriots. Of course, the Greek Cypriots have the experience in the EU, and the Turkish Cypriots will, of course, benefit from it. We'll be opening to the EU markets. We'll be having an identity as, as economic operators as well. Me working in the chamber, the problems that we encounter to explain that we are from Cyprus, but we are from the north, but we are not Turkey, but still. So go figure. I mean, the equations that we are having in that matter as well, and of course, the access to the finance. One of the problems is that Cyprus, especially in North, is not necessarily seen a very good place to give access to finance to. So the Turkish Cypriot companies do not have access to the international finance with a good price. And there will be benefits to both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, like increased international investments. Both communities will benefit from it. The employment boom, again, especially the young unemployment is a big problem. Recently, the two chambers had initiated this internship program where we are sending Turkish Cypriots to the Greek Cypriot community and vice versa. And we see people who are like in their late 20s, and then they graduated 5 years ago, and in both communities, I say, and then they have been trying last 4 or 5 years to find a decent job. Those people are bright people, and so imagine the economic employment potential of bringing together two economies, two operators, and new investors are coming in. There will be joint projects towards Turkey, to EU, to neighboring countries. There will be synergies of the solution by linking the two economies. Just, again, imagine how the synergies will be occurring. Now, we will need to rebrand our country, our economy, for investment, for tourism, for everything. The way Spain did in 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. And we need to give a message of unity, multiculturalism, and reconciliation to the world. And of course, this again will bring many researchers as well. Imagine all those peace studies will be taking place in Cyprus. All over the years, they were bringing the Irish people in, the South African people in, and now it's time to send Cypriots out to tell our stories. And of course, our biggest asset is the young Cypriots. It's us, it's you. I don't know if me, but this is the biggest asset. You are the biggest asset, and you have to take it in your own hands. Before going to the closure, I don't want to take a lot of your time. I just want to talk to you about the concept of future past. You can talk about past. We know we have been talking about past a lot. We can project the future, but I want you to go to the future in 20 years' time and look at past. Imagine how you are going to see today in 20 years' time. And this will itself give you a perspective. And entrepreneurship, no. These are just some of the opportunities that the solution will bring to you. So it is up to your creative minds to think where you can see yourself in this particular solution. Where you can establish a business, it doesn't have to be economic, where you can be maximizing your human potential, where if you want to do art, what kind of an art can it be in a United Cyprus? You don't limit yourself, and I don't want to limit you with my words. So before I finalize, we were having some conversation with Vasilis before coming to the stage, and you see, we agree that the politicians are the one to blame sometimes, but I think it's also us to take the responsibility and remember that politicians will follow us if we really take the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Can I take the podium because I'll enlighten my presentation with a small film. I think this is you're getting a feel of my presentation. But when I was asked to speak to this forum, I told Maria, well, I'm no politician, so I might be stepping over a few toes if I say what I want to say. But my discussion is going to be, I've been asked to give a preview of what I think might happen in 10 years. I can't tell you what will happen next year, but let alone 10 years. But I hope that in 10 years' time, and even much, much earlier, we will think of this period, all the years that we've had in the past, where we will wonder why we were in this conflict when this veil's taken away from us, and realize what a mistake it was. So let me just start my presentation with this question. To make a prediction of the future, one has first to take a look at the past. Some of you are probably too young to remember the Back to the Future film trilogy that was a blockbuster in the 80s. In the film, a mad scientist constructs a time-traveling machine based on what was then the coolest car of the era, the DeLorean DMC-12. In the sequel, Doc and Marty come back from the future only to discover that their hometown was in ruins and had come under the complete control of Biff, the corrupt school bully. To get back to the well-run town that they had departed from, they went back in time and made sure that Biff would be prevented from ever reaching a position of power. Sadly, in the real world, we don't have a DeLorean time machine. Because if we did, we would certainly have gone back to the 60s and made sure that Cyprus, after independence, would have had one single overriding aim: to forge a genuine partnership between the two communities and reject any nationalist and separatist ideas that were often inspired and directed by foreign powers. Instead, our politicians politically naive as they were, did all they could to drive a wedge between Greek and Turkish Cypriots and fan the flames of nationalism through Enosis and Taksim to further their own political ends, serving at the same time their foreign patrons. Consider, if you will, two small island states, both of which gained independence from Britain in the 1960s, both with diverse ethnic minorities and with strong associations to much larger patron states, Singapore and Cyprus. Singapore, with a 75% strong Chinese majority, had to integrate 4 ethnic groups, Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian, 4 separate languages, Mandarin, Malay, Tamil, and English, 4 religions and cultures, Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, and Christian. Cyprus needed to integrate just 2 ethnic groups, Greek-speaking and Turkish-speaking Cypriots, 2 religious groups, Christians and Muslims, and merge customs and cultures, most of which were common. If you had asked an independent observer which of the 2 island states had the best chance to improve in 1 generation, their bets would be on Cyprus. Instead, it is Singapore that has been the success story and the envy of the corporate world, applying the principles of meritocracy, multiculturalism, adopting religious and ethnic tolerance, eradicating corruption, and choosing English as the state's official language. It has managed, in the space of 1 generation, to leapfrog from the 3rd world to the 1st. With 2% unemployment, it has the 3rd highest per capita income in the world, one of the only AAA sovereign ratings, and is ranked consistently as the easiest place to do business in the world. If you ask Singaporeans which ethnic group they belong to, they will most likely answer that they are Singaporeans first and foremost. Cyprus was not fortunate enough to have a leader as visionary as Lee Kuan Yew. My generation's future was stolen by politicians on both sides, who were unprepared at protecting and nurturing the newfound republic and inept at leading the young nation into the modern world. Instead of working to build the foundations of the new state, the community leaders could not rid themselves of their biases and well-honed convictions that Enosis and Taksim should be their main focus. The resulting events of 1963 and 1974 sealed any hope that Cyprus could have become a Middle East Singapore in my generation. In the years to 2015, Cyprus has shown a remarkable zeal and resolve to rebuild itself from the ruins of 1974, only to fall prey to excesses and lack of checks and balances by both state and financial institutions, which ultimately brought the economy by 2013 to its knees. The economy has seesawed wildly since the late 90s, resembling more a game of snakes and ladders than a fully functioning economy. And it is fair to say that outside some financial, shipping, and service-related sectors, the investment climate has not been lucrative to attract serious foreign investors. So what will Cyprus look like in 10 years' time? Do we get to have a second bite at the cherry? The answer to this depends entirely on which politicians you, the next generation of post-solution Cypriots, choose as your leaders. If you allow ethnic and religious biases and nationalism to foster, as we did in our generation, then you only have to look at the failed states surrounding Cyprus to conclude that Cyprus will not last even a decade. For prosperity to take root, our inborn tendency for one community to dominate the other and splitting them apart should be avoided at all costs. If we do not fully integrate our societies, Cyprus will remain weak and prey to much larger and stronger competitors. Our only hope to avoid the pitfalls and resist our natural instincts of hubris and dubious party politics is to show our doubtful population that economic prosperity is the answer. To maintain growth and prosperity, we have to cultivate and support a culture of meritocracy, tolerance, and applying the rule of law and democratic values. If our aim is to become the Singapore of the Middle East, and it could well be within our means, then we have to project a different image of Cyprus than the one we have today. Cyprus needs to take a long, hard look at itself and decide which economic model it is best suited to follow in today's competitive world. If, in my view, we choose a model based on a liberal free market economy, we should attune our institutions and policies to offer the best and most efficient means of doing business in Cyprus. We should aim to brand Cyprus as the most business-friendly country in Europe, and the state should facilitate this goal by removing all bureaucratic obstacles while maintaining strict vigilance. The new Federal Republic will offer a chance to remodel our economy on new foundations with an aim of attracting value-added investments. We must accept that economic growth is the only route out of our current malaise, and this growth cannot be achieved by adding to our already exorbitant government debt, which will be under pressure with post-unification funding. Sustainable growth will be achieved when foreign investors feel certain that Cyprus has corrected its erratic policies of the past and offers long-term stability and potential for reward. Entrepreneurship should be the glue that integrates our two communities and should act as a magnet to foreign capital. Again, just like Singapore, Cyprus should first understand the comparative and strategic advantages that we have to offer and target those industries and funds which will add most value to our economy. With smart choices, Cyprus entrepreneurs can offer international corporations an oasis of stability and security in a geographic region steeped with violence and unpredictability. 10 years from now, a new generation of Cypriot business people will seem nothing like today's lot, no longer lining up to join the ranks of the civil service or the well-protected banking sector. Greek and Turkish Cypriot entrepreneurs will set their sights on new horizons, working together in the private sector or in large multinationals. These will have made Cyprus their base, benefiting from Cyprus's unique location, a pool of well-educated multilingual population, low tax status and export benefits. Greek and Turkish Cypriot partnerships and joint ventures will spring up like mushrooms as trust and opportunities help overcome suspicions and distrust. The benefits to both communities will become visible very quickly. Larger and more efficient companies will cooperate and take advantage of economies of scale rather than compete against each other in a single united market. Multilingual skills and cultural diversity will offer access to every corner of Cyprus and will help cement bonds between Greek and Turkish Cypriot business people and employees within corporations. Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot products and brands will find access to Turkey and Greece through trading firms using existing networks. If Turkey manages to temper its autocratic nationalistic tendencies, it will join the ranks of the G10 in 10 years' time, and Cypriot entrepreneurs would be well advised to study how to exploit such a large potential market. I predict a great interest for service companies, legal, accounting firms, IT, etc., offering support to Turkish corporations wanting to set up subsidiary companies in Cyprus, taking advantage of double tax treaties and European status. Add to this the gas revenue that would come on stream, the multiplier effect from rebuilding Famagusta and other undeveloped areas, the new industries and jobs that would sprout from the casino industry, tourism to and from Turkey, merchants shipping, international investment in education and medical centers, as well as research and development, and Cyprus will be vying with Singapore as the easiest place to do business by 2025. Ultimately, it is up to all of us, but mostly you, the next generation of Cypriots, to make the smart choices that would steer our common country to stability and long-term prosperity. Choices that would help propel Cyprus to the first world in 10 short years. If we don't, we will keep Cyprus hostage to our own poor choices. Thank you very much.
gentlemen, we rarely get the chance to listen to the words of great personalities. Thank you for your words of wisdom, Mr. Baikali and Mr. Petridis. The speakers will now take questions from the audience.
Hello, everybody. What an inspiring talk. Thank you very much, Mr. Petridis. If I could add to that optimism, my name is Maria Markidou, and I'm working at the Bank of Cyprus. I just wanted to bring to the attention of these young people here that Bank of Cyprus has initiated an incubator accelerator program for innovation and entrepreneurship in Phaneromeni, which is the place to be these days, as you know. And I would encourage all of you to look forward to a competition call, which will be announced in early 2016, which will be inviting teams of young people with innovative ideas who would like to be attracted to this program and receive up to 12 months of free co-working space, free mentoring, free training, so that they develop their ideas to products which may be selling abroad, and maybe have startups in Cyprus and have teams from the north and Cyprus working together. So I thought to mention this program because it is the only integrated incubator accelerator on the island that wishes to support entrepreneurship in youth.
Mariamo? Yes. Stick to the question for the audience, for the speakers.
Well, I couldn't agree more, as another member of the audience said before. So I don't have a question. I just had a comment to add to that optimism and to the future.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, the lady at the front.
Just this quick question, the Turkish Cypriots will be able to play as well?
Oh,
that's
perfect.
Thank you.
Hello. I have two questions, one for Mr. Baikalis and then one for Mr. Petridis. I totally agree if we accept the premise that money makes the world go round. So you talked about having the ports open in Cyprus, having tourism, having a lot of economic development. But if we do accept that money makes the world go round, then why haven't the Cypriot problem been resolved? I mean, a lot of people, I think not only my age, but also older, they believe that it's in the best advantage of, let's say, Erdogan or the Greek army, the Greek Cypriot army, not to have the Cypriot problem, the Cypriot situation resolved. So I think all you have said is very good, but I don't think it's actually realistic. Also for Mr. Petridis, you talked about economic development and prosperity, but another issue that a lot of young people are concerned is that economic development doesn't always equate with progress. For example, we have been signing petitions for Agamas or Apostolos Andreas because there are people talking about building casinos, building hotels, building whatever, and not having the island to the actual people. So basically, these are the questions. I'm not sure if I... Thank you.
Should I start?
Please.
Sure. Cyprus is currently one of the oldest problems, existing problems. And AmFISIP came to this island in 1964, so go figure. It is never an easy thing to solve the Cyprus problem, and nobody says that it is easy. But I think it is important to look at it from a different perspective. Nobody claims that the money will solve all the problems. Even rich countries might have other identity problems and cultural problems. But what we have been trying to do is to let you ask the same questions to yourselves. And why don't we consider the things that we are discussing here as priority and not the ones which have been discussed currently maybe on the island? I mean, very briefly, For me, it is more important to discuss animal rights, multiculturalism, environment, nuclear energy, the pros and cons and alternative resources, then discussing what aspect of the specific things which are discussed at the moment. I wonder how many of you can do a simple PowerPoint, and I wonder how many of the leaders, the ones who are discussing for ourselves, can open a PowerPoint and look at it. So this is exactly the reason why it should be you, us, it should be you to decide what is important for you and take it into your hands.
Thank you, Kamal. Yes, I understand the question, and I can't agree more, but I don't know of any other system that provides prosperity for its people if you don't align it with economic growth. It's all very well to look at side issues, not to say that I'm not supporting ecological or other non-economic issues, but we have to first solve the economic problem of Cyprus. We have, in the past, taken the wrong course, and look what it's led us. And I don't know of any other country, I don't know any country that has achieved the economic success of Singapore, let's say, because I've been to Singapore recently and I've been bewildered at what I've seen. A country maybe a quarter of the size of Cyprus with 5 million people, and 50% of the island is full of green, lush gardens, meticulously organized country with 2% unemployment. I would rather have that than this, honestly.
We are taking one more question since we are running out of time. I've seen the gentleman at the back.
Hello. Both of you have mentioned about the next generations, and I was wondering whether you yourself are ready to compromise. Because just like by just mentioning and just like kicking the ball towards the young, I believe that like you're not like really taking your own responsibility, and like it doesn't seem as if just you're ready to take the responsibility for today's just problems. Rather, just like you're kicking the ball towards us, expecting us to solve the unresolved problems. And I was just wondering if you're really just capable of like handling the issues today.
The problems, as you say, if I were in any position of power, I wouldn't push the problem down to the next generation. I would just step aside and allow the obstacles to be removed so that private sector finds ways to integrate between the two communities, and the energy that will create will immediately create a momentum for creating a dynamic economy. Trying to play the role of a nanny state where the government or the federal government puts conditions on what and if happens between the two communities, we will get to the position of two separate communities, and that will lead to a failed state.
Just a small remark. I'm 40 years old, by the way, if anybody's wondering. But I think the very reason why we are here is to make sure that the future generations do not have the same problems that we have encountered in the past, and so that maybe in 20 years' time, their problems will be more globally related, like to contribute into the discussions in the global warming, rather than discussing a specific Cyprus problem. And I think this is the whole aim of what we're trying to do.
In case there's a quick question, we'll take another quick question. Okay?
Ms. Vassiliou.
No, it's not a question. Can I make a comment? Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Congratulations to both of you. I think the main question for all of us here is whether we want to create value not just economic value, okay, for our country and for its people. I can agree more with Vasilis that economic growth is the only way. And I can see the concerns of previous people that asked questions, but I'm just wondering if the problem is whether the economic growth it's going to bring us security and make us feel more safe in this country, or whether if we don't have such economic growth, it's going to be better. I mean, just look at the near past and just visualize the future that Vasilis was talking about. I mean, this is something that we have to consider. Thank you.
Well, I think that the precondition for success in the future is that we change our way of thinking and our behavior. Let me give you one example. Somebody mentioned Agamas. Well, it was 25 years ago that President Vasiliou decided to declare Agamas as a national park. And maybe it's one of the many reasons that he lost elections. But we had been discussing about the Agamas for 25 years, and now we've changed our position, and we say, yes, we limit the national park to the government control or government-owned land. Well, this is not the way that we should succumb to pressures, because I know all these years there have been real pressures about it. The second is, you mentioned very rightly, Vasilis, about Singapore and Ling Kuan Yew. I happen to have met him. He was really a strong personality, and he was almost what I would describe a democratic dictator.
Yes, he was.
He would never succumb to pressures. He would do what he considered right for his country and go ahead. Are we prepared to do that? This is a big question. It's a stake that we have to take here.
Again, sorry, Kamal, I'll just jump in here. I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Vasiliou. Again, when I say progress and economic prosperity, I certainly don't mean that it will overshadow all our other concerns, and I'm for Agamas exactly like in your position. When I mean progress, I mean structured progress where the government needs to limit excesses. We've seen what uncontrolled excesses have done in other countries and in Cyprus as well. So yes, structured growth, moderate growth, being careful not to damage our country and mindful of the weaker people in our country. All these things, we have to put a balance. Thank you.
You want to say some closing remarks as well? I think
no, go ahead.
You see, maybe we should say enlightened despotism rather than democratic dictatorship. You see, some people are saying that we're drawing a rosy picture for the future. The reason why we are doing it, because we don't have it. The picture at the moment that we are in is not rosy at all. And it is definite that the transition period will have its own concerns, problems. It is not going to be easy. We have the Turkish Cypriot economy, which is outside the acquis communautaire for years, and we need to catch up, and we need to be able to compete and integrate as well. These things take some time. It's not going to be easy, and it's sometimes going to be a little painful as well. But the picture that we are drawing is where we want to achieve, and it is up to you to take the challenge or live with it. And I think these are my final words.
And I'll just close by saying that all those ideas that look so far away are just a short 10 years away. And honestly, you will come back in 10 years, all of you that are young enough, that you have your whole life ahead of you, and you will dream of what Cyprus was like without the progress that will come. And you will wonder that somehow a veil of darkness or of unprogress was cast upon you. And when it's lifted, you will see how Cyprus could be. And I believe in that.
We are now taking a 10-minute refreshment break. Thank you.
No, I'm not going to participate. I'm going to help.